recorded, so I just started. So, so we're gonna wait a couple of minutes, but in the meantime, while we wait for more people to join, I would like to invite you to use the chat and just either introduce yourself, say your name, where you're, watching this presentation from, and then we'll wait a couple more minutes and then we'll start the presentation. But thank you. I see people using the chat. Yeah, feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself and let people know that they have neighbors in this meeting.
I think we will wait until 6:05 and then probably start. What do you think, Ricardo?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. Jim has an interesting point about it'll be interesting to sign into the meetings directly from the street in question. I think that's a great point. All right, I see we have more interest in the chat. And then again, if you just join, I'm gonna go over the tools for Zoom again. Thank you so much for being here with us. Please remain muted at all times. You'll be able to ask questions using the microphone. We'll give you a chance to do that after the presentation. We'll have a Q&A section, but in the meantime, please remain muted. In order for you to ask your questions and be able to speak, we'll be using the raise hand option. This option is normally at the bottom of your screen, depending on what device you're using. It could vary. Sometimes it's under, if you click on reactions, you'll be able to see the raise hand. And this will prompt you all the way to the top, and then we'll call your name and you'll be able to unmute yourself and ask a question. If you don't feel like actually talking, but you have a question or a comment, please feel free to use the chat. I see people are using the chat right now just to like introduce themselves and like letting people know where they are, or just like asking questions from the beginning. And that's great. We'll also read those questions to our engineers and we'll be able to respond to them tonight. Something else that we have is a closed caption. So feel free to turn it on if it's not on, or if you want it off, you can turn it off as well. And just letting you know that this meeting is being recorded. So I feel like I'm just letting a couple more people in, but if you want, we can go ahead and start when you need.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our meeting. Hope you're doing well and staying safe in the middle of a pandemic. I'm Panini Amin Chaudhry. I'm the project manager from DOMI for this project that we're gonna talk about today, two specific corridor in Shadyside and the Bloomfield neighborhood. First of them is Aiken Avenue between Ellsworth and Baum, and the second one is Melwood from Bayard to all the way up to Blvd connector in Denver Street. Before going to the detail, I just want to introduce my team with you all today. With me, I will just put the name and then probably you can all introduce yourself. Let's go with Ricardo first.
Hello, everybody. Ricardo Solis from Healthy Right, and we are helping the city with outreach for the Move Forward projects.
Do we have Eric here?
Hey there, I'm Eric Borer with Bike Pittsburgh. I'll be monitoring the chat tonight, and so if you have questions that you don't want to ask, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll be sure to get them asked.
From the city side, we have first Paige.
Hey, everybody. My name is Paige Anderson. I'm a project engineer in the traffic division at DOMI.
We have Kim.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Kim Lucas, and I'm the Assistant Director for Planning, Policy, and Permitting with the city's Department of Mobility and Infrastructure.
And we also have our consultant from Tool Design, Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Alone with Tool Design, and we've been hired to help with the designing and planning for this project.
So before getting into the detail of the design, I just want to shed a little bit light of our departmental goal. Our ultimate goal is to transform DOMI into an agile and humanistic department where the concept of human mobility will come first. And we want to create a culture of human dignity and mobility. And to achieve that, we have started with our one of the first initiative with the active mobility infrastructure is the Bike Plus plan. In 2020, Pittsburgh adopted that Bike Plus plan that lays out a future connected bikeway network building on a comprehensive community engagement process. It went through a 5-year process. Well, thousands of comments were put in there. And this plan actually includes a roadmap for increasing bikeway connectivity citywide in the city of Pittsburgh. And also it provides some program and policies to us that will help us to achieve that. And this program that we are come from today, Move Forward PGH, is actually built on this outreach process, research, and the network development. The Bike Plus plan focused mostly on the 3 major goals. The first goal that we have is increasing the high quality bike connectivity to key destinations, such as grocery stores, transit stops, schools, civic centers. In the next phase, the second goal that we have is increase pedestrian and bicycle movement to support businesses. We want to create a culture of place instead of a space. Like when you are driving through a highway, that's actually a space you are just crossing. But in the city, we actually want a corridor where you want to wait a little bit, walk a little bit, bike a little bit, get some memories there. We want to create the place, and that's the goal of the Move Forward and also the Bike Plus plan that we have. And overall, we want to increase the comfort and the safety of all modes of transportation, and that's why the main objective of this Bike Plus network is to create as many complete streets possible in the city of Pittsburgh city limit. And today we are gonna introduce 2 improvement corridor from the eastern side, as you can see in the highlighted portion. They are from the Shadyside and the Bloomfield neighborhood, the Aiken Avenue, and the other one is Melwood Avenue. I wanna talk a little bit about the Move Forward program also. The Move Forward PGH is actually an initiative from the city of Pittsburgh, from the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. We are working with our nonprofit partner, Bike Pittsburgh and Healthy Right, for the community engagement process. The main goal of this Move Forward PGH movement is installing complete streets, ensuring more Bike Plus infrastructure that can be used by both the bicyclists and also the new emerging mobilities that we have. Say, for example, spinning our roads. We want a corridor for them, a space for them where they can actually safely use those corridors. And by doing that, we also want to ensure safety for our pedestrian and also our motorists in the corridor by properly designating space for all of them and ensuring safety while they are moving. When we are talking about the creating more bike infrastructure, I want to talk a little bit about what do we mean by that. So generally, the type of facilities you will see in the city of Pittsburgh, they can be more or less divided into these 6 classification that you're seeing. The first 3 that you have on your right, they are all ages and abilities facilities. The first one is the neighbor way. This is just a low street corridor where we actually don't provide any kind of dedicated bike lane or bike infrastructure per se, but since the corridor is very calm to begin with, very low stress, low volume, low speed neighborhood corridor in the residential zones more or less. So we try to just calm the traffic as much as we can. We try to do better wayfinding with a signage in there so that it can create a cohesive environment for the bicyclists and also for the motorists. Then we have our protected bike lane facilities where we use buffer bike lane along with flex posts. Sometimes we use rubber stop bars. Sometimes in many places you have seen that they're using planters also to create a protected buffered lane for the bike facilities. And we want those corridors in a high volume, high speed corridor where it gets really difficult to share the road with the motorists, with the bicyclists. And then we have the third classification that we have is the multi-use path or trail. That's completely separate from the roadway. They generally pass through the side of a river, lake, or a parkway, completely separate from the motorist right away, completely low stress. And then we have all these other three options that are pretty much in the high stress. They are not defined as all ages and abilities, but definitely through different design work and engineering work, we try to make those facilities as safe as possible for the riders. On that three categories, you have the buffered bike lane, you have the just bicycle lane without any kind of extended buffer, like you can see, like right here, that's the difference. Sometimes because of the width of the road and the usage, parking and everything, we fail to provide this extra buffer facilities for the riders. So we have to go with just a traditional bike lane that you can see in this picture. And then in many, especially in the rural environment, where they have wide shoulder, they don't even actually put any kind of bike lane in there. They just create edge striping and let the shoulder use for bicycle. But they are relatively high stress corridor and not necessarily recommended for all ages and abilities, like the tree that you can see from your right. Here are some of the examples of the Move Forward project that we are installing. The first one, the right side, is a south side neighborway where you can see this is a neighborway, very low stress, low volume corridor. So all the work we did is we just put the sharrows and with the wayfinding in there. And to calm the traffic, we used speed hump there. And then we have a Nagleran Boulevard where we created a bike lane, protected bike lane, two-way bike lane, as you can see with a bollard in there, and also the buffered bike lane. And then also you can create concrete buffer, complete separation, gap to point bike lane connector, where we did that to ensure a complete safe separation of the bicyclist from the motorist on that corridor. Today we will talk about the two projects that are in Bloomfield and the Shadyside neighborhood. But before getting into that, we just want to give an overview of the projects that are happening in your community. As you can see from your right, we have that Aiken Avenue that we will discuss today that will get connected through another project that's happening in the Ellsworth neighborhood. We have a public meeting coming up on September 22nd, and I'll request you all to join if you're interested to see what's going on that Ellsworth neighborhood. This Aiken Avenue will get connected with the existing facilities on Blvd Avenue, and it will also get connected to the Bayard Street and through the Melwood Avenue that will eventually get connected through the Goldway connector. So as you can see, these are not actually individual one project at a time, rather the city is envisioning a complete network that we got from the Bike Plus plan, a complete connection between different facilities where people can actually go from one place to another by using these facilities. So let's start talking with the first corridor that we have in our meeting today. That's the Aiken and the Blvd Avenue. The extent is from Baum Boulevard to the Ellsworth. We looked into the parking. There is no on-street parking. That's actually a big plus when we are doing this type of complete street project, because now we have space on the road to actually do some work, create some space for the bicyclists and also ensure safety for the pedestrian. we did collect the traffic data, and we have found that on average, more or less 9,000 vehicles is passing through this corridor. And the speed data that we got, the 85th percentile speed that we got is around 34 miles. What is saying that if you take 100 vehicles, 85 of them are actually driving at 34 or more. We also found that only 15% of the traffic are actually following the speed limit of 25 miles. This corridor doesn't have a direct through transit corridor, but it gets connected through the Route 75, bus route 82, and also the 77. We also looked into the safety situation of here, and as you can see, we have a number of bicycle crashes on this surrounding corridor, and we also found one bicycle serious injury crash on this Center and Aiken intersection. After that, we want to look into the bicycle trip number of this corridor, because when we are talking about the bicycle facilities, we want to make sure that we actually have enough users on this corridor to begin with. Just to give you a little idea, we took the 8 a.m. as a morning peak hour and 4 p.m. as the evening peak hour. And the number that you are seeing, these are actually per hour volume. As you can see that every hour we have 20 plus bicyclists actually using this corridor. And also another interesting thing, you will see that this corridor, when they're actually using the entirety of the corridor. It's not like they come to Center Avenue then making right or left, or Baum making the right or left. They're actually using the entire corridor of this Liberty to all the way up to Aiken. That also trigger an idea that we need additional bicycle safety facilities on this corridor. After that, we also wanted to look into the pedestrian usage of different intersection. The same timeline for AM, we took the 8 a.m. in the morning, and PM, we took the 4 p.m. time, 4 to 5, that time for the pedestrian. And as expected, I'm sure as a daily user of that corridor, or folks who are working and living on that corridor, this is a very, very pedestrian heavy corridor. And the numbers are also supporting that. On average, you have 150 plus people are crossing of those intersections every hour. That kind of give you the idea, the importance and the necessity of a coming road with more bicycle and pedestrian facilities and the need for that on this Aiken corridor. So let's start talking about some of the design proposals that we have. Before going to that, I just want to give you the heads up that these are actually some initial proposal. This is not the final design. We just want to share these design ideas with you today so that we can have a conversation, get some feedback from the community, work on that, and then prepare the final phase. So these are just some initial proposal that we are going to propose today. And we want to discuss this with the community and all of you who have attended in this meeting today. So we will start from the north side and go to the south part of the Aiken Avenue. And the first corridor that we have, the Aiken Avenue between Baum Boulevard and the 7th Avenue. At this moment, we have a 50 feet curb to curb on that corridor. As you can see, we have through lane and 2 full turning lane there. We did look into the traffic of the peak hour and the off-peak hour. In the peak hour, we have found usage of traffic more or less for the whole lane of this turning, but I would say majority of the day that we have found that it's barely using 40 or 50% of its capacity that we have found. And each of this lane that we have found is around 13 feet to 12 feet wide. So for this corridor, our first proposal is mashing up those 2 turn lane, because they are not, majority of the day, they are not actually working at their entire capacity to begin with. We mash them together into 1 turning lane. You have the same left turn lane, both in the Baum end and also in the central lane, but instead of 2 lane, now you will have 1 turning lane. You will have 2 through lane going northbound and southbound in 11 feet. And with that, now we want to introduce 2 bike lane in both sides, 6 feet with a 3 feet buffer and the protected facilities in there. I want to give you a little bit idea of how it can look like from the plan view. As you can see in this image that we are keeping the left lane. The left turn lane will remain there, but just instead of 2 lane, now you have 1 turning lane opening up here and opening up here, and the rest of the corridor will have a protected bike facility so that the bicyclists can go safely along with that. But with that, we also, when started looking into the data, the traffic volume and the safety, we found that this Baum Boulevard intersection and the Center Avenue are two most notorious intersections when it comes to the both pedestrian, bicycle, and overall all safety measure. So we wanted to put some extra effort on that. And we put some extra design proposition there. Let's first talk with the Liberty and the Baum intersection. So first of all, we have Liberty Avenue that needs to connect with this Aiken and Liberty connection. And through these facilities, we will be able to create one continuous bike facilities for that entire corridor. We will put some bike lane marking that will continue through the intersection. We have found that by putting this type of marking through the intersection, first of all, the bicyclists know the right of way they should use, and also the motorists are also aware that there is a bike crossing in there that made them extra aware to watch out for the bicyclists there. And with that, we also will put a new traffic signal phasing in there that's called new lagging left turn. So what's going to happen in the general phasing, you will see that when the phasing after red begin, it starts with the left turn first, and then it comes to the thoroughfare. But when we open the left turn, we also open the pedestrian crossing signal. So it creates a lot of conflict with the pedestrian there on that case. So this new lagging left turn, what this phase will do, it will just reverse the whole process. So first it will open the through traffic, both of the through traffic will get open. And on that time, you will see in the traffic signal that there is a blinking yellow going on that green arrow that can give you that you are permitted. So on that, what's telling you is that if you have opening, you have to first yield the vehicle and the pedestrian, then if you have opening, you can make the left turn. But also it's telling you that the dedicated permitted left turn phase is coming on, so the drivers can actually wait there. And after the green phase, when we have the through traffic and you also have the pedestrian traffic going on, after that, we will have the dedicated left turn phase coming in. And on that time point, most of the pedestrian has already been passed, so you have very less conflict happening and the motorists can easily make the turn in there. So that's the reason we are proposing this new lagging left turn in the Baum Liberty intersection. From there, let's move to the Aiken and Center intersection. This is, as we have seen, is a heavily used pedestrian intersection. So we want to make sure that we are looking into those issues. So the first thing that we are doing here, we will chart the left turn lane as we already have mentioned in the Liberty Avenue. Instead of two, it will create one lane. We have dedicated bike facilities, protected bike facilities here. And we are also clearing the side there for better visibility, that the parking setbacks. And we also, when we did the field visit with our advisor team, we have found that there is this movement from Center to Aiken. When they're making this turn, they come very closer to this point, which makes very difficult for the bicyclist safety point of view. So we want to block this corridor. And the same thing happened when you are from Center making a right turn. You want this vehicle to make a wider right turn rather than a skewed, because on that case, when a pedestrian, like from here to get into the road, it has more possibility of a conflict rather than if the vehicle make a wider turn, everyone now is aware where they are at. So this protected bike facilities will ensure that portion also. And when we move to the other side of the Aiken, that means from Center to Ellsworth section, we created a break-in bike lane that will accommodate the left turn, but we will provide necessary signage and also margin zone sign in there so that this conflict zone, conflict margin zone will be safe for both bicyclists and the motorists, and both of them will be aware that this is actually a zone where they need extra caution when making the margin there. Then we will move to the last phase of this Aiken corridor that will be from Center Avenue all the way up to Ellsworth. At this moment, we have in the northbound side, we have 2 travel lanes, and the southbound side, we have only 1 travel lane coming up with a 6 feet. So what's happening here through the field observation, through the advisory meeting, also our field inspection, we have found majority of the time people are using this eastmost travel lane actually for loading. whether it's UPS, whether it's USPS, whether it's water truck from the UPMC, people are loading this code zone and completely block this travel lane to begin with. So when folks are using this travel lane for travel, they have to shift every now and every position from the rightmost left to the leftmost. And it is actually creating a vulnerable situation in there. We actually have found 2 side swipe, same direction crash that occurred due to that maneuver. So we need to do 2 things. First of all, we need to make sure that people are not misusing this space, which is clearly designated as a no parking, no loading zone, but people are using. So we have to make sure that they are not doing that. And also we have to stop this sweeping of vehicle moving from left to right. So we have to create 1 single lane. And that's what we are proposing. Before this block, Ellsworth is a 2-lane. After Liberty, it again gets 2-lane. But this middle block, it gets 3 lanes. So there is also an issue of continuity of the overall corridor that we want to ensure. So what we are proposing here is a 2 travel lane, 10 feet. We will put 2 feet buffer with a protected flex post in there and 2 5-feet bike lane in there. I want to share a little bit of an overview of how it will look like also. Okay, as you can see that all the driveways that we have, these are, we will, especially the high volume driveways that we have, we are gonna put dash pane, green paint that will give the bicyclists the idea that this is actually a high volume driveway, and also motorists will get the idea that there is a bike lane going on. And we also talk with the UPMC authority and also with the EMS, city EMS. And from them, we got the idea that this is actually a heavily used emergency room entrance. And one of the requests that they have different vehicles from 23 to 33 feet wide that might need additional space to make those turn. So we definitely will take out the flex post from the emergency room entrance corridor to make sure that our emergency vehicles are moving flawlessly. And along with that, this is also a very high conflict area. So we will make sure to put additional signage and pavement marking, which will give both the motorists and the bicyclists the idea that they will need to put extra caution when crossing this specific point. And with that, we're also gonna put the flex post in there just to make sure that this illegal loading practice that we have seen in the corridor and the complaint that we have received from the community so that we can eliminate that issue also. And then we will move to the last phase in the southernmost phase of the corridor. That will be the Ellsworth and the Aiken intersection. The first treatment that we are doing that we did the turning movement count analysis, and we also looked into the vehicle crash history. And what we have found that especially in the peak hour time when the traffic actually backs down a little bit because it has more through traffic than the left traffic, we have seen that folks who want to make the left turn, they actually start driving on the opposite direction. We actually have found 2 head-on collisions that actually occurred due to that. And we also looked into the turn vehicle count to see that whether this left turn actually warranted. Maybe in the past it did, but the vehicle count that we have received at this moment, it looks like this left turn lane is not warranted at this moment. So because of the safety measure and also the warrant reason, we found that this left turn lane is something that we can definitely remove. So that's the first proposal that we have. And by removing the left turn lane, you can actually create 2 bike lanes with protected facilities. And when you're putting the protected facilities, it will work in the same way that happened in the Center Avenue. When from Ellsworth, people are making the right turn, they have to make a wider turn and to make sure that they are well aware when the pedestrians are crossing this crosswalk. We are also going to update the crosswalk that we have. We are going to put high visibility crosswalk in there. And also we found that 2 of the ramps that we have there are not ADA compliant, and we're going to change that. We do not know that the community has a huge desire for more work on this intersection, especially the traffic signal change. And city is currently working on it. We actually did put a capital project request for 2022 for this specific intersection to change the traffic signal and do some more safety improvement work. But it will be a different project. In this move forward project where we are actually mostly focusing on the pedestrian and the bicycle because of the limitation of the project and also the type of budget that we have received. At this moment, we have to stick with this treatment for this intersection. So to give you a little summary, this is the summary slide. We are making sure here that this corridor is getting calm through the treatment that we are doing. We are trying to make sure that it's getting more pedestrian friendly. We are also trying to make sure that it has become a beautiful place rather than a space, rather than you're just driving in there, and be cautious of the other users that you have on the corridors. And through that, we want to ensure a nice cohesive road infrastructure for Pittsburgh on the Aiken and Liberty Avenue. And with that, now I will move to the next corridor that we have in the Melwood neighborhood, and it will be presented by our consultant, Katie.
Great, thanks. And Panini, can you actually make Eric a co-host so he can let people in? Ricardo's having a few technical difficulties. Eric just messaged me, so I didn't get a chance to.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. So yeah, now I'm going to walk through, I'm going to walk everyone through the proposed neighborway on Melwood Avenue. So the neighborway is proposed from Denver Street to Bayard Street. Right now, the street is currently posted as 25 miles per hour. That'll stay the same, and there's parking on both sides of the street. So the proposed facility will also connect businesses and residents and connect to the existing Bayard Avenue bike lanes, as well as the neighborway to the north. So you can go to the next slide. You can go to the next slide, Panini. Yeah, thanks. So from Denver to Center, there are existing sharrows or shared lane markings. Those will remain there. And the only difference is adding a speed hump between Baum and Center. And then from Center to Bayard, we're proposing a contraflow bike lane in addition to one speed hump between Center and Bayard. I'm going to move to the next slide. So this is showing between Denver Street and Center, looking toward Center here. This cross section, like I mentioned a minute ago, is going to pretty much stay the same. The only difference is that we'll be adding that speed hump between Baum and Center. So two-way traffic here with shared lane markings that will remain the same with parking on either side. And then the bigger change is going to come between Center Avenue and Bayard Street. So right now, this image is looking towards Bayard Street, so everyone can orient themselves. Right now, it's one way traveling north with parking on both sides. And the proposed, if you want to flip to the next slide, is going to be adding shared lane marking so that bicyclists traveling north will remain with the vehicles, and then a contraflow bike lane for bicyclists traveling south. So here in this image, that green section would become the bike lane, and it would be traveling south, like I said, where vehicles and bicyclists traveling north would be combined in the shared lane with the sharrow. If you want to move to the next slide. So this is just some examples, images of contraflow bike lanes. We wanted to show these because Pittsburgh already has some contraflow bike lanes, for example, on Forbes Avenue and 3rd Avenue downtown. So again, the contraflow bike lane, the change to the street is that vehicles will continue traveling in the same way, but it allows to accommodate for that two-way bicycle movement and having a contraflow lane for the bicyclists. So if you want to switch to the next slide. So of course, the really important part here is that transition into the contraflow lane from a two-way street into a one-way street with a contraflow bike lane. So this drawing is showing that transition. And what's really important here is we want to bring awareness and facilitate that transition for bicyclists and allow motorists to know that they are not to enter the one-way traveling south, but bicyclists are permitted. So first, we'll be adding some green paint to signify the start of that contraflow lane traveling south. And the markings will continue through the intersection there as a dash with the chevron. And then there will be signage that says do not enter except bicyclists with a striped area with flex posts to help protect those bicyclists from both from the vehicular traffic traveling north, and then also to help notify to motorists that they are not to turn right into that bike lane or to just enter going south into the one-way street, where it becomes a one-way. And then just like Aiken, at high volume driveways, there's going to be a dashed green pavement markings there. And then if you want to go to the next slide. So yeah, just a reminder of the projects that we just went over: the Melwood Avenue, again from Denver to Bayard, Aiken Avenue, and both of them connecting, well, Aiken directly connecting into that Ellsworth Avenue, and then being able to connect eventually to the Melwood Avenue through Bayard Street through Ellsworth. So for everyone, just a reminder, the Ellsworth Neighborway meeting is on September 22nd. I think I saw that Eric dropped the link in there for everyone so that you can sign up and attend that on the 22nd. And I think we're going to move into questions and answers now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Katie. So just again, reminding everybody that there's that raise hand option. And if you want to ask a question using the mic, you can go ahead and find that option. But also we can, in the meantime, move with Eric and then maybe read a couple of questions from the chat.
Sure. I got about 4 questions in the chat so far. So just for sake of planning. The first one I have is the first 3 are all about Aiken. And so the question is, can the lagging left turn at Baum be implemented regardless of the Aiken project, like tomorrow, question mark?
Yeah, absolutely. We are actually looking at the phasing data of that. So yeah, this is regardless of like whether the bike facilities is going in or not. It's just a change in the phasing of the traffic signal, and we are actually actively looking into that. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. The second question I have is also about Aiken. Can it be made more clear that the motor vehicles must merge into the bike lane, sort of like what goes on for right turn traffic from Forbes onto Margaret Morrison? So I think this is on the approach to center.
Yes, absolutely. We will put pavement markings, signage in there. And also, like you will see the merging lane in different areas, they use the green box in there that kind of give the idea that this is a joint merging lane for both the bicyclists and the motorists. We will make sure that we have all those signage and the pavement marking there on that marging zone area.
I'm going to stick with the Aiken questions. We're really going through them. Can we at least get cars off the northwest corner of Ellsworth and Aiken as part of this project, like a painted bump out? Likewise, after one crosses Ellsworth going south on Aiken. So that was Rob Pfaffman. I don't know if you want to speak up, be a little clearer on that one, Rob.
Yeah, we could use a little bit more information. Sorry, if it's possible.
Sure. So on the north, this is Rob. On the northwest corner, there are a lot of cars parked right where you're going to have your high-vis crosswalks. So
okay.
And actually on the other corner, I guess that I would consider that one right there. And so as you're coming down Ellsworth, there's a lot of conflict right at that corner, especially if you move the bike lane over there, right there, exactly. And then the same thing when you're going straight ahead, I think it gets narrower there on Aiken, I believe, right? As you're going southward? No.
That is correct, yeah.
No, not that corner, but the other south.
Like right here.
No, the southwest corner, sorry. Across the street there, because if you see that curb, it bumps out right there, exactly. There's conflict as you're coming down Aiken towards Walnut Street. As you're, the road gets narrower there, I'm pretty sure, and that's been a problem. Anyways, I think if you could do something with the bump outs around that corner, even though you haven't finished the Ellsworth design as part of this project, that would help the safety, especially in the interim.
Absolutely, sir. So like you said, you already know the biggest problem we will face when we look at the bump out. Like when you try to create the bump out, you need to have that space on that intersection. Otherwise, you are pretty much putting the bump out maybe in the middle of a travel lane on that situation. So we definitely will look into it. And as you are well aware that we are working on a big bike safety improvement and also traffic calming improvement project on Ellsworth, we definitely will look at from that viewpoint also to make sure that maybe it's bump out, maybe it's some other countermeasure that we can try to evaluate and find out the best possible alternative for this one.
Okay, I got one more question on Aiken, and then maybe we can go take some audience questions.
Sounds good.
Can no turn on red signs be installed at Ellsworth and Aiken, and Baum and Liberty? So those two intersections, Ellsworth, Aiken, Baum, Liberty.
So on that no turn on left, there is a certain warrant trend that you have to follow. You cannot just put it irrespective of issues. First of all, you have to look into whether you have any kind of sightline issue. Like when you're making the right turn on red, whether it's creating a sightline issue that might create a conflict on crashes. That we haven't found both for Center and also for Ellsworth. So that's the one problem. And the other problem is how many vehicles that are passing on that turning lane. That also need to be warranted to make sure that we can put that no turn on red. We certainly can evaluate that, but based on the crash data that we have seen or the data that we have collected, at this moment, it might not be warranted to put that no turn on red on that intersection at this moment.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call a couple of names from the people that raised their hands. So we're gonna call Jim and then Mary. Jim, please unmute yourself.
Hi, Panini.
Hi.
So I'm the one who asked the question about the turn lane at or the through and right turn lane at Liberty and Baum, and mostly I just want to make it really clear. I mean, I want it to be really clear when the lane goes away. Was it Liberty and Baum? I forget which one. Yeah, that one there. Yes. That quite often there's lots of these lanes in town where it's really ambiguous who has right of way, how people are supposed to go. Whereas in other places, I mean, I specifically mentioned Forbes and turning onto Margaret Morrison, because there it is completely unambiguous. A person in a motor vehicle is merging into merging into another lane. And in lots of other cases, it's not. And I just want to make sure that that's, again, unambiguous, because I've seen so many cases where it is ambiguous in the city.
Yes, especially for the older road gyms, what happened is the pavement marking completely vanished, and it gets really difficult to know which lane you are driving.
I'm talking about when it's new. I mean,
okay.
They're just put up. I mean, a bike lane goes away, and you have people merging. I mean, there are lots of them new all over the city, and that's a problem.
Absolutely. That's why, when I'm talking about the center intersection, maybe that will be the appropriate point where we can actually talk on that. When we are doing this merging zone in the center, like right here, when we will do the merging, we will put additional signage in advance, and also we'll put pavement marking in there that will show that it's a shared lane both for bicyclists and the motorists in there to make sure that the motorists are well aware of that.
Well,
What happened for this type of issue, John, like if we have some additional space, the best practice is actually create a left turn lane for the bicyclist and create a separate lane for the motorist. But for this instance, we simply just don't have the space on the corridor. And the traffic count that we have received, and it looks like that the left turn lane is really necessary to ensure the capacity. I mean, we are maintaining the capacity of this intersection. So we have to remain that. But we will work through and we will provide appropriate signage and the pavement marking to make sure that this will be as clear as it gets.
well, it's not at the point that you've been pointing to that I have issues with. It's the point further back where there is the actual merge. And in some places it's well marked. In most, as you have it marked on the page there is no clear markings that you're merging. You're just that there is no clear markings that it's merging. If that makes sense.
Is this the corridor on the Liberty?
No. Where you were pointing to, but keep going further east. Or I guess that's not east. I keep going further left on the page, and where, I mean, right there. I mean, you have no marking. You have no knowledge that you're really merging into a bike lane.
No, you're not. The bike lane will be right here.
No, on the other side of the
On the
road.
other direction,
Yeah,
like right
and
here.
when you go further back, when you're entering the through lane, you have no sense the way it's marked right now that you are entering, that you're merging into what was a bike lane.
Jim, for this specific portion, like are you proposing like this specific point?
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Like this is a conflict merging zone, and that's why we will make sure that we have adequate
Okay.
signage beforehand that can give the idea both the motorists and the bicyclists that it will be a mixed zone. And along with that, we will also make sure to put pavement marking here that will clear it as much clear as it gets. Yeah, we definitely will keep that in mind. And from the other side, we actually have a separated bike facilities in
Yes,
there.
I
So
agree.
there isn't
It's
an
not in
actually
question.
margin problem per se
Hey.
for that.
Hey there, it's Paige. If I might
Yeah.
intervene, I was looking, Jim, that's really good input. I was looking at the Margaret Morrison one because I'm familiar with it as well, but I think that's a little different because it's actually a right turn ad rather than everyone moving into the bike lane to go straight. So it's a little bit less optimal in that sense, but I do think that we could totally look to that as an example and consider some dashed lines or I'm not sure, some like added things to kind of mimic what you're speaking to at Forbes and Margaret Morrison.
So, I mean, mostly I just want it unambiguous, and as it's put on there, it is ambiguous, if that makes sense.
Right,
Absolutely,
yeah,
we will look into it. Absolutely.
yeah,
agree
and I
with
will
you.
say we've looked at this intersection a lot to try to figure out the least harmful place to have this bike lane disappear. And it's not an easy decision to make, and it's unfortunate that we have to make it, but I think this is hopefully the best spot and we can make it as clear as possible.
Yeah, no, I don't object to the bike lane turning into a shared lane. It's that, yeah, as I've said, I object to it being in any manner ambiguous.
Sure, and I like how you worded it earlier, making it clear that it's, you know, the bikes have a priority there. Absolutely.
So that's all I have. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that. Mary, please unmute yourself.
Hi. Yeah, I agree with Jim's points. I think that was a great point to make. My comment is in regards to the South Aiken triangle with Baum, that intersection.
Let's see if we can get in there.
Yeah.
This is the intersection, Mary.
Yes. So I live in Garfield by the Garfield Market. And when I bike, I have like the phone mount on my bike, and I come through this way a lot, and Google always routes me down Aiken, like on the Aiken side of the triangle, which of course has never been great because it's like really difficult to get from Aiken to Liberty. And oftentimes my friends and I will cut across all the lanes of the traffic on Liberty on that, on like right where Aiken and Liberty meet. We'll cut across right there to get down, because that's essentially what Google's telling us to do. So I guess my comment is just to take into account traffic coming from Aiken, or maybe making it more clear on Baum that that's the way the bike should go. Or I don't know if there's a way to inform Google that maybe this isn't the best route for bikes to be taking. But I just wanted to.
Yeah, you actually can put a report through Google Map every now and then. Whenever we have a landslide or land closure, we generally send email to Waze and Google. This is a public email address they have for any kind of information like this. When you are having this type of trouble, if you share that information with Google, I don't have the email address like memorized at this moment, but you can just find it in Google. And regarding the other question that you have, passing lane, like at this moment, you have like 4 lanes that you have to cross. It gets really difficult. And that's why we are actually proposing to make it 3 lane, like 1 through lane going on the eastbound, 1 going on the west, and then you have 1 turning lane. So instead of worrying about 4 lane, on that case, you will just worrying about 2 lane pretty much at the moment. And with that also, we are looking into, since we have a lot of pedestrian activities in there, we are trying to incorporate lead pedestrian interval, where you will get the pedestrian actually get a 3-second headway before making any kind of green on the other side or making the right turn. So that's like a dedicated 3-second for the pedestrian to get into the corridor and create himself more visible to the the motorist. So we will look into that signal facing also to make sure that it's more clear and more visible to the motorists, both the bicyclists and the pedestrian.
I guess what I'm thinking though is more so that if people are coming on Aiken, the Aiken end of the triangle, and they need to get to Liberty, what's going to happen is that they're going to take the wrong bike lane, the bike lane going the other way, because that's the safest way to get to the intersection where you can cross, or of course like crossing all the lanes from Aiken. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that people coming from Aiken are taken into account.
I think signage will play a big play in this. And the other thing is like when the cyclists will see that we have protected facilities on both sides, I hope they won't do that, like the maneuver that you're talking about, going in the alternate way, since we already have protected facilities on both sides. I just hope that that will have a positive impact on the biking behavior of the cyclist.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mary. Leah, please unmute yourself.
Hi, so you mentioned earlier that there's this issue where in the right lane or in the east lane on Aiken, there's a lot of stopped cars that are usually in the right-hand lane when you're going north. So with that lane removed, I guess I'm curious what you think will happen to that situation. If cars just won't stop there, if they'll just stop in the travel lane. I guess they can't stop in the bike lane because it will be protected, but yeah, it feels like it's still going to be an issue after this change.
Well, yeah, that like the thing is, sometimes we keep doing something that is not legal in the first place, and we just assume that that is legal. If we do it a couple of times, maybe it just gets through. So for this corridor, that's the problem we are having. Like those, if you walk through that corridor, and if you are familiar, you know that there is actually no parking sign installed all over the corridor, but folks are not just following. So through the bike lane and also the travel lane, we are trying to mitigate that lane was never meant for loading in the first place. And we have to do some engineering work to make sure that we are enforcing that code. And through the design, we are hopeful that we will be able to enforce that, and people will be more mindful of using this corridor for loading and unloading purpose.
Yeah, to some extent, I think that having the protected bike lane there will solve it. I think the biggest concern now is right where that merge is happening with the bike lane merging into the traffic lane. That's where there's often cars stopped. And so I guess, I don't know, I'm kind of ready to see how this goes, but I hope that's something that you'll keep an eye on and consider revisiting if it needs, because I'm worried that you'll have like the bikes merging into the main lane and cars stop there. And then the bike will actually have to like get out of the bike lane and out of the right travel lane and into the left turn lane in order to get around the cars that are stopped in that right straight travel lane. Does that make sense?
So is it like when we did the field visit and also collected the data, we haven't seen anyone like park like right there. Are you afraid that?
Yes, that
could
is,
be a case?
yes, I am. So, like I said, I think it's just something to keep an eye on. And like, if the answer is enforcement, then make sure it's enforced. If the answer is it needs another structural change, like come back soon and revisit that. But I think it's important to just, I could see that being a real problem. And so I want to raise that.
Absolutely. We will further investigate the situation and see what other alternative we can come up with to make sure that doesn't happen. Thanks for your comments.
Yeah, thank you for that. Eric, do we have more questions from the chat, or should we keep going with the raise hands?
I can ask a couple more questions from the chat.
Sounds good.
Someone asked about, I'll keep with Aiken for the second, about using rumble strips where vehicles merge into a shared lane. Is that a possibility?
The biggest complaint on the rumble strip is the noise. So whenever it comes to a commercial or dense residential area, we generally don't recommend rumble strip because it creates so much noise that you start getting the nuisance complaint. So that is one of the reasons, but we can look into the other alternative that we have. It's called transverse marking. So we just put some extra layer of painting so that it create a little groove. It won't create a whole big jerk, but it will alert the driver that you are getting into a marking lane. We definitely can look into the possibility of something like that. But rumble strip has like this noise complaint a lot, so we generally don't recommend them in the residential or commercial corridors.
Sounds good. And then I got one more from the chat, and then we can go back to the hands. Do you have examples? This is on Melwood. Do you have examples of contraflow bike lanes that are up against parked cars and that aren't parking protected?
Katie, do you want a response to that?
Yeah, I was gonna say I've definitely seen it in other cities, and we could maybe follow up with actual images of other cross streets that represent that. But it has, it definitely exists in other cities like that. I don't know, Panini or Paige, if there's an example like that in Pittsburgh with the parking like that.
I don't think that there is, except for we are going to be installing within the end of this construction season this year, the same condition on Bartlett in Squirrel Hill. So we will have an example of that very soon, and hopefully a few of them. We've seen them primarily, it's one of the cities we looked at and spoke to about it was DC. DC's done many of these. So they were good partners and people to talk to about their experiences with these and informing our design.
Thanks. That was the last question I have in the chat at the moment.
Back to me then?
Looks like you're
Yes,
up, Mayor.
ma'am.
Yes, okay. So thanks for this. These are exciting new developments, and I am all in favor of them. Some details. before my major comment, I have a small comment on contraflow lanes against parked cars. They scare me less than usual lanes against parked cars because it's the passenger side, not the driver's side. And because if the door opens, it will tend to deflect you rather than trapping you. And because of the difference in the door swing, I find it less scary. My major comment, though, was about driveways, and it's triggered by the discussion here, particularly about the Aiken discussion, but it's a question that applies to bike lanes across the city, and certainly the answer should be consistent across the city so everyone knows what's going on. My understanding is that the bicycle lanes are travel lanes, just like the car lanes are travel lanes in the street. And that the priority at the intersection of a driveway and a bicycle lane should be like the intersection of a driveway and a street, that the car person, driver coming out of the driveway should yield or stop to the traffic in the travel lane. And I'd like to get a clear statement to that effect and to make that part of the messaging so that it's clear that just like cars need to stop for the through automobiles coming past, that they also need to stop for the bicycles that are coming past.
Yes, Mary, you are absolutely correct. Like when you are in the driveway, you have to yield with whatever the traffic going on in the travel lane. And the bicycle has the right of way on that case, because in this Aiken example, it is the through traffic. And that's why we are trying to create those margin zone, conflict zone signage, and also the marking on the road that we have shown you, those dotted green marks, so that it create a sense like there is something different in there, and the drivers will be more aware to know that they have to yield when it comes to the pedestrian.
I'd like to get this into the education campaign as well as into the road markings.
Absolutely. That's a very good idea that we can look into.
And I don't know whether any of the city bike lanes have this, but there are trails and there are certainly bike lanes in other areas nearby where there are actually stop signs for the bicycles to let the right of way go to the driveway. If there are any of those in Pittsburgh, I'd like to get them taken care of so that we have one consistent rule throughout.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Let's go on to Andrew, who has his hand raised. And also I saw, Andrew, you asked a question in the chat. So I don't know if you want to, if it was the same question or if you want to double up.
No, that's less important than the question that I want to ask here. I guess I am pretty disappointed to see in this diagram that we're seeing on the screen right now, the lane disappearing at Aiken and Center. I think that's going to be a really dangerous conflict for biking through there. And like everything else about this project seems pretty good. And that seems still like it's going to be a very tense and scary spot. So I'd like to hear about what other options you considered to not have that lane disappear at that choke point.
So Andrew, the basic, like the main problem argument that we have in this intersection, like if we could take out that left turn lane from there and make it just standard like we did on the Ellsworth Aiken intersection. We took out the left turn lane, we created that additional space for the bicyclists, and it worked out just fine. So the problem with Aiken Center intersection and the Ellsworth Aiken intersection is like the traffic volume. You need to have a certain number of vehicle less to warrant that taking out the left turn, that we found that warrant, that there isn't actually a whole lot of people making the left turn on Ellsworth. So it was easier for us to take out that left turn lane in the Ellsworth corridor. But when it comes to the center Aiken, we still have a lot of left turn going on there. So if we take out the left turn, what's gonna happen, you will find a backlog of car. Folks are trying to make the left turn, but you don't have the signal on that point because you don't have dedicated left turn lane there. And you have the through traffic continuously coming from the opposite direction. So you have this huge backlog that's gonna happen there. And you also have to consider that we have UPMC there, and the conversation that we have there, they have 2 parking lots, around 1,200 or 13 total car park there. They have around over 2,000 people every day come there for working. So that's a lot of traffic. And for that type of intersection, if we take out the left turn lane, it generally compromises the overall performance of that.
So I understand that argument if we're keeping the existing signaling. Have you considered allowing or changing the signaling to go basically each side of the intersection one at a time, rather than, you know, left to right, top to bottom as it is today? Then you don't have conflicts.
Yeah, we did look into a couple of phasing options, and we are actually still evaluating that option. So yes, we can look into those other options. So what we do here, we create a model scenario that's called a synchro analysis, where you put all this like the existing traffic that you have, and then you change the signal phasing that you are recommending and see how the performance is working, whether we are getting a lot of backlog. So we are still evaluating those different options in there, and we definitely will look into more, since it looks like that this is the main big pitching point for the community, that this merging is creating an issue. So we will look into some other option, other alternative, maybe changing the signals to see whether it's possible to take out that left turn lane and create that additional space for the bicyclist. We are absolutely gonna look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. We're gonna go to Kevin because he's had his hand up for a while. And then I have 2 questions from the chat, and then it looks like we have 2 more right, at least right now, in the raised hand. So Kevin, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, thanks, Eric. First of all, I'd like to just say, great presentation. I don't want to speak for everyone in this meeting, but I think, we just want to see something happen. And I think this is a great improvement. And this will be venting for a second, but, I've lived here since 2008 in Shadyside, and nothing has happened. And we keep hearing things are going to happen, things are going to happen. This was announced, I think in the spring. We're at the end of summer, and now we're just finally getting to it. And I just think, even as shown, can't we just do this? Can't we just get it moving? And if things need tweaked, we can tweak it next season. So anyway, sorry, that's just venting on that part. I want to repeat Leah's comment a little bit about the condition at Aiken and Center, that Mozart apartment building, because I guess, you may make site visits, but we live here and we're walking this corridor multiple times a week. And whenever I walk past that Mozart apartment building, there's almost always a car parked in front of it, either loading or unloading on move-in days, sometimes multiple cars deep. And also, UPS, FedEx, there's a ton of delivery trucks delivering to UPMC that park on Aiken as well, and then just block that travel lane. So, I think that needs to be addressed. I'm obviously, I can just send you photos just almost every time I'm walking on Aiken of blockage. Even with the port cachere that the Mozart apartment building has, there's still always people blocking that travel lane. So it is an issue, and I think it's something that, we'll probably need to address through signage or enforcement. My question I asked in the chat was about the no turn on red signs at Ellsworth and Aiken, and that's kind of my follow-up question, where if the books say it's not warranted to put no turn on red, can we at least put bollards with flex posts at that intersection, specifically on Ellsworth turning right onto Aiken? Because I walk this in the morning. I have my neighbors who work at UPMC walk this in the morning, and it's an extremely dangerous intersection with multiple people on Ellsworth, multiple drivers turning right on red without even looking both ways in the crosswalk. Maybe sometimes not even stopping at that red sign. They're just kind of making that natural turn. And, it's a single lane. Ellsworth is a single lane, but when it gets at the bus stop at the corner, it turns into 2 lanes, kind of de facto 2 lanes. And if there's a way to kind of sneak that down through bollards, bollards would probably be the only way to prohibit drivers from making that turn. I think that will go a long way to protecting that intersection. Because I guess, if this is still all about pedestrian safety, not tackling that crosswalk and the pedestrian safety of people just crossing the street, I think is a missed opportunity. And just, kind of want to bring that up. So thank you.
Absolutely, Andres. So I also resonate with the concern that you had regarding the parking, and actually during the field visit and also the stakeholder meeting that we hold, Mozart's owner was also there in the advisory meeting with us. He also did the walkthrough with us, and the issue that you are talking about is very true. So what's happening in there, if you have extra space, like you are parking there, but you still have space left where actually people can do the driving maneuver, can go every day, you will keep doing it, though it's illegal. Through the new design that we are proposing, you actually won't even have that space in the first place. So basically, if you are parking there, you're basically blocking the whole northbound travel lane. So I think it will have a huge impact when people look that actually they don't even have any space to make that maneuver in the first place. And they are basically parking in the travel lane, on the travel lane that will go in the northbound. And it will push them to be more responsive on this type of illegal behavior. And to your second concern, as I already mentioned, that we actually have a big project coming up for the Ellsworth Aiken intersection. We know that the community has a huge desire, and also this is a very, very high crash location that needs some love from the city, and we are working on it. Through this project, we probably gonna look into the option that you're saying, like protecting the angle in there so that it can create a little bit better side distance and people are not making some rough right turn. We definitely will look into that possibility and see what can be the best option we can deploy in there. But we appreciate all the comments.
Thanks. I'll go to another question from the chat, and then we'll go back to the hands. This is on Melwood. Does the contraflow lane on the one-way street cross an intersection? And will there be clear markings for drivers that bikes are coming in on what looks like a wrong way?
Yes. Let's see if I can go to that corner.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Penny, I think that was the intersection that we showed, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get
Yeah.
into there. Yeah, stay with me.
Yeah, it doesn't cross an intersection, but. Oh. Yep.
Yeah. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, like Eric said, it doesn't cross an intersection. It's the transition from the two-way shared travel lanes into the contraflow lane. So the contraflow lane would be going south, and this intersection at Center and Melwood facilitates bicyclists getting into that contraflow lane that would be going south. So as you can see, we have like the green painted bike lane here to notify that you're getting into that contraflow lane, the pavement markings through the intersection. And then there's, it's a little hard to see, but there is an area here that has that's striped with flexible delineators to separate the travel lane from the bike lane, and to really signify to motorists that that is only bicyclists that are allowed to go south on Melwood. There's also going to be signage that says do not enter except bicyclists as well. And then I'm just gonna, I saw in the chat that Andrew also asked about the how it's going to be striped. And I know this image is in black and white and has the green paint, but that dashed line between that you see between the travel lane and the contraflow bike lane, that would be a yellow, a dashed double yellow marking. And then the solid line between the bike lane and the parking would be a white solid line. So just wanted to, since we're on Melwood, answer that too.
Yeah. The second part of that question then is how do we make sure that the drivers who are using the corridor understand that bikes are actually going the correct way when it looks like the wrong way? So is there anything that's going to indicate, to drivers, an arrow or things like arrows or things like that.
So there'd be signage that would help notify motorists that of the contraflow lane in which direction it's going. I think the bicycle markings that we're showing right now are just in the direction of what the bike lane would be going. So versus you would see that the shared lane marking is in the other direction going north. Makes sense.
Let's move on to Andreas. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Andreas.
Yes, I want to come back to the intersection of Aiken and Center. And of course, prefacing what I'm going to say with that, I'm really happy that Domi has taken all these initiatives to implement the whole streets plan. You already made a big difference, in my opinion. So I do agree with the prior comment that the merge of the cars with straight traffic across the intersection and with the bicyclists is extremely dangerous. Cars don't obey, the rules anyway. Most of them don't pay attention and they're on their phones, but that's a different gripe. So what about, when I look at the diagram of the traffic flow, there doesn't seem to be a need for traffic going straight to be separated, right, from the left turn lane. So could we just put a bicycle safe zone in there, or make the intersection a protected intersection as is proposed for Station Street in East Liberty, so that cars can just go straight and pedestrians and bicycles can turn right in a protective fashion?
Yes, Andreas. As I mentioned earlier, we actually did look into the volume, and looks like if we sandwich all the right turn, straight and left turn in one single lane, the way that we are doing for Ellsworth, it will create a huge backlog issue, back traffic congestion issue on that intersection, and the travel time will go way up than the current travel time that we have on that intersection. You have a very long wait there. And that is the main reason we couldn't create that additional lane in there. But we are looking into different possibilities. And since it looks like it is a big community desire to create that protected bike lane there on that intersection, we can definitely revisit the information and the data that we got and try to figure out a compromise out of it. We definitely will look into it. But the reason we didn't do it in the first place, like I said, because of the volume. If you sandwich all the left, right, and the through traffic in one single lane, especially in this intersection, the congestion will go up pretty high, especially during the peak hour time. So that's the reason we primarily didn't recommend it in the first place. But we can definitely look into whether we can do something else, since it looks like it's a big community desire for this intersection safety.
Thank you, Panini. Let's do Jim, and then we can do more questions from the chat. Jim, please unmute yourself.
Hi. So this is somewhat of a pointed question, I'll admit, but there's a lot of deference to maintaining motor vehicle traffic volumes and fears of adding weights to motor vehicles at various points. How does this comport with the city's stated policy of reducing vehicle miles per capita by 50% by 2030?
You have to start somewhere, Jim, right? Like we cannot just get rid of all the vehicles by tomorrow. We have to go one day at a time. We have to take baby steps. And this type of complete street project is that moving in the right direction, but moving periodically slowly so that it won't create a big disruption. Just say, for example, for the Aiken, You had 3 travel lanes dedicated specifically just for motorists in the past. And now we are creating 2 travel lanes for the motorists. It's not like they are being ignored or anything. They have their travel lane, but we are also ensuring more bicycle amenities in there. And our hope and desire that through this type of more infrastructure and the facilities on the road, people will be more inclined to use their non-motorized option in there. And eventually we will be able to achieve that goal by 2030 in there.
I mean, it is 2021 right now. That's 9 years away.
You know, I know, we all know those goals are goals, like kind of climate action goals are goals. Climate planning, Paris Accord is a goal. We have to try. We have to give the best shot and see how it goes. And that's what we are doing as a department.
So just as I said, it's pointed, but it's, I mean, it is a stated goal of the city. And so.
We are working as like, we are trying to do as much as we can from our viewpoint, but yeah, sometimes you achieve the goal, sometimes you try. And when you couldn't achieve the goal, you have to learn something. So well, that's the goal that we are moving towards.
And then there's this meeting and all of this work represents 0.76 miles of 120 miles on the Bike Plus plan. This is an awful lot of effort for just, and this is not even much that controversial of a section. And this is just, I mean, that's stated as a 5-year plan. So I'm just saying that we have these goals that we're pretending they're not realistic when they should be. And so I'll just leave it as that. And so, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I have one more question from the chat. And I don't see any other hands raised at the moment. So the question is there a maintenance budget to reinstall the flex posts as they're run over by drivers?
Yes, if we install any infrastructure in our right-of-way, we also are bound to maintain those facilities in the right-of-way. So yes, if we go with the flex posts, we definitely have budget and will maintain those flex posts along the way. You might not, if it gets run over by a driver, you might not see that tomorrow we will put a new flex post in there, but it's definitely gonna happen because that's our, we are required to maintain those facilities if we put in there, yes.
Sorry, I got another one in the chat. For maintenance, how will these lanes work with snow removal?
Yes, so for that, currently DOMI is working with our Department of Public Works, who is in charge of the snow removal, because in past we actually had seen this issue where in the protected bike facilities, they simply couldn't come and clear that on time. So we are currently working with them. That discussion is ongoing, and we are hopeful that we will come into an agreement where in this winter or from the next winter, we will be able to have dedicated facilities just to clear up all these bike facilities that we have, because generally they are 5 feet or 10 feet rather than the general road snow removal truck that we have. So they have to be used by a different type of equipment. So we are in the process of procuring all that, working with DPW. And yes, the conversation is ongoing.
Thank you. So we have one more raise hand, and I think after that maybe we could do like a wrap up since it's almost 7:30. Andreas, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, I want to put one more perspective on the intersection of Center and Baum, Aiken and Center. That right now a big impediment for flowing traffic, bicycle traffic especially, is that there's already a big backup of cars going towards Blvd Avenue, and it's too narrow for bicycles to even squeeze by. So I don't have the answers except my preferred vision of what that should look like. But you may want to keep that in mind, that especially in rush hour or heavy traffic, you could be waiting for 2 cycles, 2 light cycles, even as a cyclist, when you should be moving faster than traffic. And so this is in general something that, is my opinion, that, cars hold bicyclists up and not the other way around. So
Absolutely.
just keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be lecturing here, but it's just food for thought.
We appreciate all the comments that we are getting from there, because these are very good comments that we can actually take into account in the next phase of the design. And that is the reason actually we are here today, so that we can present our preliminary ideas with you and get some ideas from you, like how we can improve it and make it better for the users of this corridor.
All right.
Bayard or Eric, do we have any other question?
I don't think we have any other questions. So did we share the survey link? I don't know if we have talked about that, but we can mention that if you want, Panini, that we have a survey, and then also.
Yes. Bayard, you can go ahead and explain that.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, again, we're always looking out for your feedback. So hopefully we'll be sharing that link in the chat. And if for some reason somebody wasn't able to make it to this meeting, I'll be sending you the recording of this meeting and the presentation via email. And I'll also resend that link to the survey as well. The link will be up for 3 weeks. Feel free to share it with your friends, coworkers, anybody that, even though they don't live in the area, are interested in bicycle or like care about that. But yeah, again, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. We really appreciate all your feedback.
And thanks a lot. We appreciate your time.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you, Katie, as well, and Paige and Eric for being in the chat.
Sure thing. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Have a good one.